Hi, I'm Rick Lombardo, and I'm the Artistic Director at San Jose Repertory Theater. And thanks for taking the time to look at this video today. It's my pleasure to be able to share with you the plays that we're going to be doing at the Rep in our 2009-2010 season. The 6 plays are very exciting to me. I think they reflect some of the issues that are important for our time. I think they're plays that are enormously entertaining, thought-provoking, and are going to give us all a really interesting theatrical journey next season. We'll be starting off the season next year in September with Shakespeare's As You Like It. In October, with the American premiere of the new play by Joe Penhall, Landscape with Weapon. In November and December, we're going to be bringing back one of the most beloved favorites here at the Rep for the holiday season, A Christmas Story. January, we'll see Conor McPherson's The Weir on our stage. In March, we're going to be entertained with the rhythms of Fats Waller in the musical review Ain't Misbehavin', and we'll be closing the season in May with the Bay Area premiere of Melinda Lopez's play Sonia Flew. I'm starting off the season with Shakespeare's As You Like It because while I think it's one of his funniest plays, it's also one of his most sophisticated comedies. It has some profound questions about the meaning of life, the journey of life. It allows us to learn about the healing power of romance, the healing power of returning to nature. And I'm going to be exploring a bit about, in the first part of the play, what is the role of technology in our lives, and how is this perhaps creating some level of dehumanization. And then, of course, Shakespeare always brings his characters in his comedies out into the woods, out into nature, and we're going to see bit by bit people get more in touch with that aspect of their lives. And I think it's going to be a wonderful, fun, romantic, provocative journey. Next up, when we produce the American premiere of Landscape with Weapon, we're very excited about this because this is a play that is exploring the ethics of the use of robotics in the battlefield, and which is one of the major hot topics right now in our cultural dialogue. The play is about a weapons designer in the UK who is working on a system to allow unmanned drone aircraft to exist to be able to perform espionage. And he starts to have a crisis of conscience. He eventually goes back to his firm and says, you know, I'll be happy to turn this over to the British government, but I don't want them to be able to sell it to other nations for use. And this gets him into a battle with both his own company and ultimately with a very shady comic interrogator from the British government. And it's a fascinating, entertaining play that also asks some really interesting questions about the ethics of high-tech development. I think it's great that we're going to be producing this play and asking these questions here because we're right in the heart of Silicon Valley. In the holiday season, starting in late November and into December, we're going to be presenting a revival of one of the productions that was our most successful and best-loved holiday offerings, A Christmas Story. This is, of course, based on the very famous Jean Shepherd short story. I know many people are familiar with the film every year. The play is very funny and very heartwarming. And it's a real opportunity for folks to be able to bring young people, to bring families to the theater, introduce them to the theater. Following that, in January, I'll be directing a production of The Weir by Conor McPherson. This is a beautiful, haunting, poetic, funny, extremely touching play set in a very isolated, rural Irish pub. And it's a place where a small collection of locals every night gather together and drink and tell stories. And on this particular evening, there's a young woman who's moving into the village from Dublin and being shown around town by a real estate broker who's trying to sell her a house. And when some of the local characters in the pub discover that the house he's trying to sell her, by legend, has been haunted, it sets off this stream of stories of the supernatural. And bit by bit, we discover that all of these characters, in their loneliness and in their isolation, have actually each been touched by the supernatural in some way. They've never really told anyone about it. And as they drink, as they tell stories, as the night goes on, they form a kind of family and a kind of community. And we ultimately learn the secret of why this young woman is moving here when she tells her story at the end of the play. And it's beautiful and sorrowful and I think one of the finest plays of the last 25 years, and I'm really happy we're going to be presenting it here. In March, we'll be doing a co-production with our friends at the Arizona Theater Company and the Cleveland Playhouse of the Fats Waller musical review, Ain't Misbehavin'. There'll be a 7-piece jazz band on our stage, 5 incredible actors, singer, dancers, and you're going to hear a lot of songs that you're very familiar with, like Ain't Misbehavin', and Black and Blue. And what I love about this piece is that it's the first one of the major musical reviews, and I think it's better than most of them because it really explores what the beginning of the jazz Renaissance period was in Harlem, and what is the genesis of jazz music, and how did African American culture contribute to this sea change in American music coming out of Harlem in the 1920s. So I think you're going to have a great time, and it's also a very powerful piece as well, which I really like about it. The finale to our season next year in May will be the Bay Area premiere of Sonia Flew by Melinda Lopez. This is a Cuban-American story, and what's very interesting about this play is that it takes place in 2 locations and in 2 different time periods. In Act 1, we're in Minneapolis, Minnesota, just several months after the events of 9/11. And Sonia is a middle-aged Cuban-American mother, housewife, married to a Jewish husband, and the family is preparing for their traditional Hanukkah Christmas celebration that they do every year. His father is flying up from Miami, and in the midst of all of this, Sonia's son announces that he's not going to be attending college, but instead he's planning to join the military to join the war on terror. This sets off a debate in the family, but in Sonia, this hits some very, very deep button, some trigger in her, and her reaction to it is, in many ways, is way out of proportion with what you even would expect from a mother whose son has just announced that they're going to be going into a war zone. It almost tears the family apart. No one quite knows why. In Act 2, we discover a bit why, because the events in the second act of the play take place in Havana, Cuba, at the time of the Castro Revolution. And what's fascinating about the way the play is structured is that all of the actors who play the family in Act 1 play Sonia's Cuban family in Act 2, but whereas the woman who played Sonia in Act 1 plays Sonia's mother in Act 2, the younger actress who plays Sonia's daughter in Act 1 plays Sonia as a young teenager in Act 2. And we discover that her family is desperately trying to get her a student visa to leave the country. Sonia's not happy about this. She's in love with a young man who's a revolutionary. She's excited about leaving school. She wants to go work in the sugar fields, but her parents want her to continue her education. Eventually, they force her to escape Cuba and go to the United States on a plane, and she never sees her family again. We learn a lot that for Sonia, the issues are how do we maintain our connection to family, and how do we keep our loved ones close to us when there are huge social and political upheavals that threaten to tear us apart. It's a funny play, and it's a very poetic play, and I think it asks really interesting questions, especially in this time when we're all going through social, political upheaval. What are the things that mean the most to us, and how do we hold on to them? So those are the 6 plays that we're doing next year. Each one of them, I think, is a very unique and different journey. They're exciting journeys. I hope that you'll come and experience all 6 of them with us, or 1 or 2 if there's something that really tickles your fancy. I can promise you that each one of these plays is going to offer you a very different, very interesting theatrical journey, and together next year we'll take those journeys together here at San Jose Repertory Theater. And thank you for watching.